yeah. It's not hard to make a good white Zinfandel. In this video, you're going to see how this is done. And the quality of the product, beautiful, clear, and absolutely delicious. Check out the video, you're going to like it. Hello, welcome to my kitchen. This is Texas Cooking Today, and I'm Stuart. I'm going to be making some hooch. I'm just being silly. We're going to be making wine today, folks. I'm going to be doing a wine kit. Now, when I say doing wine today, I'm going to put it together today in front of you, and then it's going to take weeks for this to be done. But in that, I want to film the whole progress, the whole process, beginning to end, so you get to see the whole thing right here and now. So this takes me quite some time to do. One of these videos, it takes literally over a month. So let's get started. This is a wine kit, and it's one of the best ways I know of doing home fermenting to make wine. Now, I'm doing some other recipes at the same time. I did one video on just fermenting, and that's just about fermenting, and that gives you some good background information. I did another video, which is this one, and this is the beginning of the cider right here. So I'm producing a hard cider, so be sure to watch that video also. This is the wine kit, and also I've got the ingredients to be making a beer real soon. I love doing fermenting. I used to do a lot of brewing. I mean, a whole lot of brewing. And in fact, I did it every Sunday. It was just a regular thing for me. So it was a rare thing for me not to produce some sort of alcohol on a weekend. And so I had a kind of a regular thing running where I had all the alcohol I could ever imagine or want. And I didn't make a fresh batch every weekend, but what I did was had something to do with the brewing, and it was every single weekend. And so I'm going to be doing that for a little while. And I'll look forward to this. This is stuff that I'm producing for my Christmas, for our holidays, and it's going to be fun. Now, I purchased this wine kit, and I've done a lot of these things. I mean, I've made lots and lots of these kits. In fact, this very same type. And these things are delicious. Some of the best wines that I've ever drank, some of the best wines I've ever had, have actually came from these kits. I remember when I produced my first Chardonnay, and people were looking at the bottles, and they were looking at the clarity of the wine, and they wanted to know if I was just messing with them. They were like, no, this is professionally made. I'm like, no, that's I made. And you know, I showed them my processes and stuff, and they were just shocked that I was producing such a clear, beautiful wine, and also that had such wonderful flavors. The notes and characteristics of the wines, they're incredible. So, you know, some of the kits may have wood chips that you put into the wine to give it an oaky flavor. Some of them may have a second bag of juice to add to the wine near the finish of the fermenting, and that's what we call a fortified wine. So they've got a lot of different types, and you get to, if you've never seen one of these, you get to see it for the first time right here. We're going to open this guy up. So come on over. Let's look inside the box. All right, let's open the box. I say open it. I'll tell you what, they do glue it together real well. It's probably a good thing. These things are really heavy, and they need it to stay together really, really well. Okay, yeah, sure enough, here we go. Here is a small bag of grape concentrate, okay? And this is a white Zinfandel, so it's a Zinfandel right there. Now here's some of the little bags and things that we're going to be needing. So here's the kit that comes with it. Now on the inside of this box is a large bag, and I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to leave it in here, but I'm going to tilt it. You see here, you've got a spout, the cap. We're just going to uncap this and pour it right into the carboy, this big glass bottle that I have right behind it here. Okay, so that's the kit right there. Now, let's go ahead and open this up. We're going to look inside. There are several different items, and be careful when you cut this open because you don't want to cut this open. This has to be saved until the very end of the winemaking. This is a product called Chitison. Now you will see one of two bags like this in every kit. It'll either be Chitison or it'll be Isinglass. And both of those products come from shellfish. They help to clear the wine up at the end of the fermenting process. Okay, pardon all the noise. Here is a instruction booklet, and I'm going to read every bit of it because it's been a few years since I made one of these. I want to make sure nothing has changed, and I just want to refresh what I know about this. So I'm going to read that sucker. Now right here, I've got a package of what looks like yeast to me. Let me see if it, yeah, sure enough, this is our yeast right here, wine yeast. Now here is a small packet of Kieselsol. We'll get into the use of this product in a little bit because that's a new one on me. I've never seen that in one of these kits. Okay, now here I have some sulfite sorbate, and here I have some bentonite. Now this right here is a preservative. At the end of the fermenting, we don't want to put live yeast into the bottles, into the wine bottles. So we need something that's going to kill that yeast, and we need something that'll pull all of that yeast and the particulate matter out of the wine. That's what these chemicals like this do. So we kill the yeast and clarify the wine. The bentonite is used to make the water heavy. If you make the water heavy, it's easier to get a clear product later. So this is actually a type of clay. We will add the bentonite in the early stages at the very beginning of making this product. And what that does for us, as I said, it makes that water heavy. It gives you better quality fermentation, and then it's much easier to get the water to clear and settle. The bentonite will help make the wine clear. All right? So there's a lot of things that help to make the wine better than just what you would get naturally. That's why I like these kits. They're very, very well put together. So this little simple white Zinfandel, I'm going to read this instruction manual real quick and turn the camera back on, and then we're going to get started putting this together. I've had my instructions out, just kind of giving them a glance, a once over. And sure enough, that one extra item that is new to me was another fining agent. And I was sure it would be. But anyway, what you got here is it tells you what's in your kit. Your wine base, that's the big bag in the box. The reserve, if included, smaller bag, that was this one down here. Also, let's see here, may contain oak, granular chips, or cubes. All right, as I mentioned before, some wines are normally stored in oak casks, and it gives them a slightly oaky flavor, you know, like a good Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon. These are wines that need that kind of an oaky kick. And also, if I remember right, Chardonnay as well is done in white oak. And if I remember when I made that, it has white oak chips with it. So you put those down in the wine and it gives it that was done in a wood cask flavor. All right, it's really cool. Smart that they did it that way. Anyway, we got also a yeast packet, which you've seen, the bentonite, and it says helps yeast activity and removes proteins. Now I knew it removes the proteins. It takes out that haze. I didn't know about the yeast activity. That's really cool to learn. All right, now the potassium betabisulfite or potassium sorbate package, that is used to prevent oxidization and to inhibit yeast growth. Now at the end of fermenting, we put that in to make it bottle stable, all right? So we don't want it going bad in the bottle. So we need that extra item to give it food safety, you could say. It's just a good way to make really good wine. And these kits produce fantastic wines. Let's see, fining agents here. Here we go. Kieselsol or Chitison removes suspended particles, which results in a clear, stable wine. Again, it's about getting the particles out, clarifying the wine, and making it good for bottling. All right, so when you do get a bottled wine, it is no different than the grade and quality of wine that you're going to buy at the store. And in some cases, you might find that they actually taste a little better. This company produces high quality products. This particular one has a mixture of domestic and imported grapes. Some of their wines have strictly imported grapes. It just depends on which one you choose. And I am not, by the way, this company that makes this wine kit, they're not sponsoring me. I just picked this particular kit out because I wanted to make it for Christmas, and I thought, I'm going to share it with my audience. That was the whole deal. And I'm probably going to get another one too. I might be doing a Chardonnay or something like that, or a Merlot, or maybe both, who knows. Anyway, we have to get things ready, and it starts by cleaning and sanitizing everything. Now, before the video, I went ahead and took this and did a full sanitizing on it. Now, I remember sanitizing it before I put it in storage, but I'm not going to take any risks. So I went ahead and did another full sanitizing on it, rinsed it multiple times until I was certain nothing was left in it. We can use a couple of different things for sanitizing: bleach or potassium metabisulfite. When you're doing a lot of winemaking, it's generally preferred to use the latter. However, you can use bleach, but you need to make sure every last speck of that bleach is washed out. Any left in there will really mess up your wine. All right, so don't mess around with it. Make sure you do extra rinses, and make sure your nose can't smell any bleach at all, period, when you're finished. All right, and I did that with this. All of my other equipment's also sanitized. Okay, so this is a hydrometer. This is an item that weighs liquids, specific gravity. And then you weigh the liquid to begin with before fermenting, and then you weigh it after fermenting. The difference between those two weights will give you your approximate alcohol content by volume. Okay, so that's the advantage of that nice little tool. They're not expensive either. I think I paid like $8 for that. All right, so you'll need one of those. You'll also need a bottle filler and wine bottles, okay? Now, I don't use a bottle filler. I use a dispensing bucket where everything gets transferred into a sanitized bucket that's got a special valve. And that valve allows me to just start filling bottles, one right after the other. It goes really quick, smooth, and I get a very exacting amount each time. So anyway, that's enough about that. This right here says we're going to pour 2 liters or 8 cups of hot water into the bottom of this, and we're going to take this packet of bentonite right here and mix it with it. It does mention on the instructions that this stuff isn't going to mix fully with the water, okay? You're going to get kind of partial dissolving. And don't let that bother you, because later when the rest of the ingredients get added, it does dissolve out into those. All right, so our bentonite clay will go in right up front. And then it says pour contents of the juice base bag into the primary fermenter. And the base bag is the big one here. Rinse bag with water and add to the primary fermenter. If there are 2 bags, use the larger one now. The reserve small bag is not added at this step. Okay, now top your primary fermenter to the 6-gallon mark. Now, some of these kits, depending on what company you go with and what you're making, like if it's a beer kit, a lot of times they'll make 5 gallons, sometimes 6. It depends on the country it comes out from. Okay, so I go ahead and pre-mark my bottles. I fill them very carefully, one with 5 gallons of water, and then I bring it up to 6 gallons of water, and I mark it with tape. And I use a nice vinyl tape that'll just stay on there for years. So I'm going to be filling it up to here. Once I get everything in there, we'll top it off with water to that point. Now, I will say these things get just remarkably heavy when they're full. All right, 6 gallons of liquid isn't light. All right, and it's very heavy. Glass carboys, if you drop it while it's full, then it very likely can sever your foot. Okay, because it's glass, it'll just turn into a razor and chop it off. This happened to a lot of people who used to deliver water when it was still in glass bottles. The things are very dangerous. So handle them with the utmost care, please. Move them with care, have extra people to help you if necessary, and keep them in a place where they can just be unmoved. I'll be putting mine over on the buffet later, and that way when I'm finished with the primary ferment, I don't have to move them or touch them. I'll simply siphon the liquid down to a bottle that's set in front of the buffet, and it'll go very smooth. Okay, now I have brought a chair in here to set this carboy on. And that is because when you're making wine, you have to lift that heavy box of wine concentrate, the grape juice concentrate, fairly high. And if you're lifting it, as you can see, this funnel will be too high for me to hold it up there and get the contents of that into this. So I'm just going to lower it down, making it a little more convenient. So if you do this, make sure you use a good stable platform, something that'll hold the bottle where it won't fall over or get bumped or whatever and cause problems. So the funnels that they sell for actually doing this are a special funnel that has ribs on the outside. Never cut these ribs off, and always make sure that your funnel isn't pushed down tight. Leave it kind of loose. This way the air can escape as you're pouring stuff in, and otherwise your funnel can get pushed up and out from air pressure. All right, so keep it easy on it. All right, now first thing, hot water right here. Now it needs to be mentioned, sometimes it can be challenging to get things through the narrow neck of one of these bottles. And so what I recommend is that we sometimes put things directly in the funnel and wash them through. So here I have my bentonite clay. Let me cut this open. Now, the bentonite, when I look in here, it isn't clumping or compacting. So if I want, I can just take my package and kind of pinch it a little bit and pour it straight into this. Put my funnel back there and add the remainder of my water. All right, set this aside, and I'm just going to give this a good strong mix. Having something to stir one of these carboys is really smart. I use what's called a stirring paddle, but the paddle end won't fit through that narrow hole. However, that little tab that it hangs from, folks, it'll fit. There we go. That was something I just now remembered about these. This cap is tough to get off. It is tight. I used the edge of a somewhat dull knife to force into the edge and twist it open. But it got the job done. Now, this, as simple as that. The beauty of these big funnels, they can also handle an absolutely huge load, a large volume of liquid. Now, in the bottom of the bag here, we see a little sedimentation. That's normal, all right? Okay, here's the thing. You don't have to fill the bag to rinse it. Just get enough water in there to make sure you salvage the rest of any usable product. Now sometimes that settled product, those can be tannins left over from the skins, and it adds to the flavor overall of the wine. So don't forget, it doesn't hurt to get some of that out of there. Now folks, so you'll know, when it comes to fermenting, when it comes to making beer, wine, sake, cider, anything that you're going to be adding water to, if you live in an area where you have heavy water, like there's minerals in it, like you got lime in the water or whatever, that is a blessing, okay? Heavy minerals in water make for good beer. Lesson number one. And they also make for good wine. So don't be afraid of a little bit of mineral content being in there. Okay, right about this point, I want to say that if you want to have this on a higher location before you completely fill it, would be a smart time to move it, okay? So let's go ahead and put this up here. That thing's already getting quite heavy, and it's only got about 4 gallons in it. It looks like I'm almost up to my 6-gallon mark, the top of that yellow tape. Almost. So you'll know your measurements don't have to be exactly perfect, but try to get them close, okay? And that's one of the reasons I have these marks on here, was to make that easy for me, because I was doing so much brewing, I didn't want to measure it every single time. That really gets old. Okay, so I have everything in here. Oops, pardon me. Now, after I get it all together, it says to stir well, and then we take a measurement with the hydrometer, which guess what? I'm not going to do. Now I want to say this, the stirring process right here, this is important when it comes to winemaking, good winemaking. Normally you want to keep air away from the wine during the fermenting, all right? Yeah, it's true. However, when the fermenting first starts, that yeast benefits from having a little bit of air worked down into that liquid, a little bit of oxygen in there. The same way fish need it in the water, yeast need it to start their fermenting, okay? Once it's up and running, it's off and going. But until then, just a little agitation. Now you can see some particulate matter down in here. Notice this? The particles, that's some of that clay. Don't worry, the clay will become more dissolved. It does its own thing, folks. You just kind of got to get it stirred up as good as possible and let it do its own thing. All right, now the yeast. The next thing. It's good smelling yeast. I like the aroma of yeast. I find it quite pleasant. There we go. Now that yeast is spreading out. It will simply dissolve, drop down in here, and it's going to do its own thing. I have my fermentation lock here. Now folks, the way these little guys work, this is a simple little device. Okay, I had some sanitizer still in it there that I cleaned it with earlier, and that was just water that I rinsed. So anyway, I have this item. This little bung here helps to hold it in the hole. Okay, this guy here has this little part, and on the inside there is a little tube that travels from up here all the way down to here where there's some vent holes. All right, now this is a little cap that fits over that tube, but there are vent holes at the bottom down here. And what happens is when you fill this up, above these holes on the cap, any carbon dioxide in this will have to go down through that liquid and then come back up to bubble out through the holes that are in the top of the cap here. All right, and the idea here is to keep it from pulling air into the carboy. If the carboy gets air in there, once again, we don't want to mess with our fermentation by having air in this. And if you have changing temperatures in your home, it can cause this to change temperature, and when this does, it can then pull in or create a vacuum and pull inward. So we avoid that. Now, I want to take this and we're going to be putting it up in here, but I'm going to seal it with a little vodka, and we're going to fill it with vodka. Okay, I'm just going to put a tiny drop of vodka here in this little dish. There we go. All I need is just enough to wet my finger to wet the outside of the bung, all right? And I wet the outside of the bung because it really helps it to stick to the carboy that much better. It goes in there and it sticks nice and firm that way. Take this lid off, and we're going to fill our fermentation lock to its fill line with vodka. So if the vodka gets pulled into the fermenter, it won't hurt a thing, folks. After all, the fermenter is producing the same kind of alcohol that's in the vodka, but the vodka is a good sanitary item to put in there, all right? It's all about being sanitary. All of it's If you want to produce good wine, beer, cider, sake, mead, or anything else, it starts with sanitizing. You've got to sanitize it all and be very meticulous about it. Now these other packages here and this bag, I'm going to put them together with the original box and the instructions. Those get used later. Your set of instructions starts with day 1, primary fermentation. Step 2 starts with day 14. This needs a couple of weeks. We just got to be patient. You know, there's just certain things that you have to buy because you're not allowed to make them. Distillation is illegal. Fermentation, well, at least in the United States, fermentation is completely legal, okay? You can make anything that is made like this, but you can't build a still to make the alcohol stronger. That requires a license, all right? Now, I have here some beautiful cider that's gonna be gracing my Christmas holidays. I have here a white Zinfandel wine. This is one of my favorite wines. I like it because it's fruity, it's light, it makes for great sauces. Where red wines are sometimes heavy for a red sauce, this is great. And where white wines are sometimes too light for something, this fills that gap. So it's just a great item to have. Cheers to you. What I'm going to do is, as soon as I see activity in these, we're going to get in here, we're going to turn the lights up on bright, and we'll put that camera lens right up to this and let you see what fermenting looks like. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to see a lot of activity. Okay? So, until my next clip, which will be either hours or maybe tomorrow. We'll see. All right, our wine has gotten really kicked up. It's 16 hours later, and if you'll notice, right here on top of the wine, we have what is referred to as a creosote. Okay, and you get a beer creosote, you get a wine creosote. This one is a wine creosote, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's what it looks like on top of that tank. Now up above there, on my fermentation lock, it's got business going on up there. Let me see if I can get a zoom in there. There we go. And that thing has been kicking off gas on a regular basis. Now it isn't kicking it off quite as fast as my cider is. However, it's just getting started. Sometimes wine is a little slower to get started, and when it does, it really gets going. So we'll watch this tank closely. We're going to watch for all of what goes on in it. There we are. A lot of times you can get a lot of activity in these tanks and a lot of swirling and motion moving on around in them. So we're going to be looking for that and for all of the effects, you know, in the fermenting process. So I'm going to show it to you several different times. 16 hours right there, folks. All right, we have been up and fermenting for 2 days now. So let me pull this off. This is our wine. Now, right here, if you see where it looks kind of rough on the edge of the bottle there, that is actually right where that foam, that creosote came up to. So the foam on top of this actually got almost an inch thick at one point. You can see right there. And another thing, if we look inside of the carboy, the carbon dioxide rising up shoots out of the liquid so hard, it actually looks like there's rain across the surface. So we're going to take a close-up look at that here in just a second. Up here we see our fermentation lock just clicking away. It's been putting out carbon dioxide hard and heavy for the last 2 days now. And so that's what that looks like, folks. Now let's take a real close-up look on top of that liquid. Let's get right up in here. There we go. Now let me get some light on that. We'll see if we can see that carbon dioxide dancing and looking like rain. There it is. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, I certainly can. And I'll get this at a couple of different angles too, so we'll be sure for you to get a chance to see that. All right, we're going to try to get another look at our rainstorm inside of here. Yeah, I'm seeing that very clearly now. Comes up, looks like it's rising up sideways there. But yeah, you can actually see the liquid as the carbon dioxide is shooting up out of it. So this tank is actually very, very active. All right, let's take a look at that liquid. We see a whole lot of activity. See a lot of material rising up. And the thing of it is if you watch the liquid on one of these carboys, you can see a great deal of swirling and activity and movement down in that liquid. So it's really quite the amazing little show. Now, as it turns out, the lighter color of the liquid, the more this really shows up. But it just also depends on what it is you're brewing. Wines and ciders, you see more of just these bubbles rising. Okay, let's take a look at these fermentations. Oh, now I've had these running for a few days now. Both of these fermentations, this one's a cider. It's been running since the 5th. This is the 9th. You can see up here where we had some of the foam in here kind of rise up on the side. Now it gets washed back down. And that's kind of normal. I'm still seeing bubbles rising up in this. And we're still getting, of course, bubbling on top up there. So there's a lot of activity in there. When you look up close with this, you can see a lot of movement, some swirling of the contents inside. And the same thing over here. I see a lot of activity and movement. In the bottom of both of these, we get a nice yeast cake buildup. Folks, the yeast from brewing can actually be saved and reused. So that's one of the little things that you have the opportunity to save money on if you want to get into this kind of hobby. You don't have to buy yeast every time. You can reuse it the same way you do like a yeast starter for bread. Okay, so white Zinfandel up and running for 4 days and still just bubbling away. And the apple cider here up and running for 4 days and it's still fermenting also. These generally take a week, sometimes 2 weeks in the primary ferment stage, which is what we're in now. We'll know that this stage is over with when this light color goes away and it turns dark. That means it's turning clear. And that's when it's time to move it to another fermenter. Until then, we get to wait. Move this over. I've got another fermenter down here in this chair. Oh, and by the way, it's been a few weeks for me, even though it's just seconds for you. This has been just fermenting away and doing its thing. Now, according to the kit, on day 17, you're supposed to check this thing, and or excuse me, on day 14, you're supposed to check it and make sure that it's the right. Well, right now it's on day 17, so it should be finished. All right, and it's no big deal if you let it go a few extra days. Will not hurt it at all. Just be relaxed about making wine, and trust me, your wine making will go well. All right, so what I have here is my white Zinfandel wine. We're going to be measuring the specific gravity on it. And what we do here is we use this little tool right here. This is called a hydrometer. And what it is it's basically, it is a tube of paper inside of a glass, a piece of glass that's got lead in the bottom. And it's measured and placed in such a way that when it floats in water, it will give you an exact reading of the specific gravity of a liquid. So the specific gravity of this liquid when we started it was right about the 1.070. So this right here floated about that high out of the liquid. This time we're hoping it's going to be down here in the liquid. Okay, so the liquid should be up here. to find out, we're going to use a wine thief. That's this little guy. And this is a little tube. It's got a valve on one end. You can put a hydrometer inside of most wine thieves, by the way. A lot of people don't know this. You don't have to pull the wine out, put it into something else, and then take a measurement. You can do it just directly. Now, another thing, I need something to put my fermentation lock into while I'm taking my reading. All right. So the only time your wine should be open is when you are doing something like this or transferring liquids. Okay, I can see him floating now. Oh, that's a beautiful liquid. Remember, we're making a white Zinfandel here. So we're looking for that beautiful pink color. We'll pull this out over a towel. And I've got my reading. It's way down in there. Okay, so I've got full fermentation that has taken place in this liquid. Now, what's in the wine thief here, if I wish to taste a little bit, I can do that. All I have to do, take a small glass, touch the valve to the side of the glass, and even though it's a little murky looking, I've got a taste of my own wine. Now I can put the rest right back down into the carboy, letting it gently glide over the side. That's the beauty of that little valve on the tip of a wine thief. It allows you to very gently take care of all of your business. All right, so I've taken my reading. I have exactly the right reading I'm looking for. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Now, it doesn't taste like a white Zinfandel. That's because it hasn't been fortified. But right now, it's very tart, which is something I love in wines. I like an acidic wine. Very fruity. And that fruitiness will be enhanced with the fortification. The fortifying of wine, what we're going to do is we're going to add some more of that juice in there. We've got another bag of grape juice that goes right in here after we kill this fermentation. So what I have to do is I need to rack this liquid from this fermenter to the one I have down here below me. And doing that, I will then be able to clarify my liquid because I'm going to add in a couple of those ingredients that came in the package. So I'm going to get on with that. We'll show you what racking means. It means siphoning, and how it's done is very, very easy. Okay, I have my siphon tube ready to go. So here is the trick to this, and there is a trick, and it's not a hard one. Make sure your siphon tube is already filled with water. Okay, it needs to be filled with liquid in order for the siphon to flow. You don't want to be sucking on the end of the hose. That's not how we do that. All right, so what we do is we fill the tube with water, have another container ready to catch the water when it first comes out of the tube, and then the rest of it will go straight into that container. Now, I'm going to, with my thumb, plug the end of the tube and place the racking cane right down into my fermenter. Here we go. I'm going to move the liquid and we'll see it come right through there. See that color? Bam. Okay, so I've got just the wine here, and the wine is now going right down into this other fermenter. I just allow it to curve and cascade off of the side of the fermenting jug, and that way it's not getting gassed up. All right, and that means we don't want to mix in a lot of air. All right, we have certain things we want to do, and we want the liquid in a certain very pristine state. Now, right now, this liquid is fairly clear. It's not as clear as it's going to be. We're going to clear it up a lot more, and that's what the chemicals that we're about to put in there do. Some of the chemicals are going to kill the yeast, and after we kill the yeast, then we use chemicals to pull the sediment or that haze out of that liquid, and it'll settle to the bottom of this secondary fermenter. That's all there is to it. So this is a pretty easy thing when you get down to it. You make a beautiful wine. Now let's take a close-up look at that. You can see how toward the back of that tank, that liquid's just cascading off of it and rolling down to the back side there. And it'll slowly fill that. Now these racking canes actually work pretty quick. This will have that tank drained and moved from one to the other in just a matter of minutes. It'll be a very clean job. And after that, I can clean the old fermenter as I'm taking care of the wine in the new fermenter. All right, now I have right here a packet of sulfite sorbate and sulfite sorbate. We've got two things that will kill yeast right here. That's the whole idea. Is we've done all of our fermenting. The thing is filled with alcohol. Okay, we got about 9% alcohol in there right now. I was looking at my specific gravity and doing the readings on that, and it's somewhere between 9 and 10%. Now, before I go just pouring this in here, something I want to do, I'm going to set this up here for just a minute. My stirring paddle that I need to put in there, I want this to be as sanitary as possible, so I'm going to use a little plain clear grain spirits, all right, and I want to wash this off with it. You can use other ways to sanitize your equipment, but I'm going to do this real quick. All right, and that's the exact same alcohol that's down in here. They're both it's the same stuff, folks. Don't have to worry about it. So when you're doing something like this and you're using the same stuff that you drink, it's all right. And also that stuff, which is 200 proof, it evaporates very, very quickly. Now, the instructions tell you that after racking this, you're supposed to stir it vigorously for about 10 minutes. Now, while I do stir mine, and it says to reverse direction occasionally, and I will do that. I know that seems weird, but their instructions are quite specific, and I have learned that on these wine kits, if you follow those directions, you're probably going to be very happy. All right? I have always been quite pleased with the results I got. All right, I'm going to pull this up and out and just let them drip to the side. I have a towel down here. Gently pour in the contents of my sorbates. There we go. And that will get stirred in well. It's pretty much guaranteed that when you put that in there, you have just killed all of your yeast, and that's the whole idea. We do not want any living yeast left in this at all. All right, it has been another day. Okay, so we have just put the, from your perspective, just finished putting in the agent which stops fermenting. My fermentation lock has dropped now. It's setting low. That means there's nothing going on inside of here. And that's exactly the way I want it. All right, so what we have to do now is to add to this wine what makes it sweet and fruity, the white Zinfandel, which is just this little bit of juice that we have left here, and then put in the fining agents here. And those are made from a refined shellfish, and it's used to pull out any cloudiness and cause everything in the tank to settle. So it's as simple as that. I'm going to remove my firm lock now, and we will get on with this. Okay. I want to use a funnel, mostly because, well, I'm klutzy, and I most likely will mess it up otherwise. Okay, a word of warning. These caps are difficult to remove, okay? And that's kind of being nice about it. I like to use a semi-dull knife to just get under the edge of it. There we go. And finally get it pried off. There we go. Now, one thing's for sure, you know, after you pour this in there, you can also, whatever's left, you can taste it. It gives you a good chance to do that. It is a very good tasting grape juice. All right. Now, of these, I'm supposed to add one now and another one an hour from now, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to show y'all that part, but it's going to be the same as what I'm doing here. Now I just need some scissors to cut this open. I'm pouring it in there. Now this other packet is much smaller. I will likely just tear the corner on it and go straight in on the top up here. But usually when there's larger amounts of liquid, I like to use the funnel anytime I can. Now I will mention that when it comes to wines that are kosher, this wouldn't be a kosher wine, okay? And the reason is because of what we just put in there. That clarifying agent comes from shellfish, and of course shellfish are not kosher, so that makes that wine not so kosher. Okay, anyway, if you wanted kosher wine, you would simply leave that out. Okay, I'm not going to kill myself stirring this. Just a little bit. And then I will stir in that other one so it gets stirred a second time anyway. Okay. And as I always do, just a little bit of moisture to help that cork seat well. And I like to use that alcohol. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and just a little more. There we are. Now, while that thing is floating up at the moment, later on we'll probably see it fall again. So that'll be very normal. Gonna wait for the clearing process. Now, this is going to be probably about another 5 days, most likely. I will most likely give it a full week. Sometimes I do that. I'm real patient with the wine, okay? There's no reason to be in a rush. In fact, I'll straight up here. It's actually been 2 days since I put in the sorbet, okay? So it doesn't matter if it waits an extra day. I was just very busy yesterday and didn't get around to it. Not a problem. Anyway, this is going to get nice and clear. The clearer it gets, the darker it appears in this. But remember, you can always use a light to check that clarity. And by putting that light directly against that, you get to kind of see right into that liquid. I have been bottling up my wine. Now I've just racked it into this bucket. Same way I did from one carboy to the other. I just transferred it right into here. Now I have these corks. They've been soaking in some warm water that I put a little bit of potassium metabisulfite in. The corks are larger than, of course, the bottles, and that's why we use a nice little device like this. This is called a corker. We put our cork into the opening here, and this piston right here shoves it into the bottle, but there's a narrowed aperture where the cork comes out, and that's what tapers it into the bottle. There we are. Perfectly done. I've got a beautiful clear wine here. The color on it's absolutely fantastic. And of course, bottling this is not too tough. All I have to do is simply take my bottles. I usually get something to sit on. And I keep down below here a blanket. And that way I'm absolutely certain that I can take care of business without making a mess on the floor. These dispensing buckets are notorious for dripping and leaking just a little bit. So do yourself a favor and just keep some leak prevention around. It's basically as simple as fill it. You want your wine about halfway up the spout, or excuse me, the neck, not the spout. About halfway up that neck. Now that right there is a little bit on the high side, a little bit too much. So when I get one that's like that, it's not a problem. I just pour a little bit off Now it's ready for a cork. So all in all, this is not a hard thing to do. The top of these bottles can be covered with a little sleeve. They make those for this, and they will heat shrink. So you simply have a pot of boiling water, and you put that over the top, turn the bottle upside down into the boiling water. Of course, it's got a cork, it won't hurt it, and it will shrink it right onto the bottle and seal it down nice and tight. So those things are real cool and easy. Take a look at all the different neat things that are provided to do wine. Now folks, this is not hard. This wine is ready to drink right now, or I can let it sit up for a few weeks, which is what I'm going to do. This is my Christmas wine, but I'm going to enjoy a little bit of it here in just a minute as soon as I get my bottling done, because I always save a little bit at the end just to enjoy, and that way I know what I've got. And I've tasted this and it's perfect. It's a wonderful wine. Everything I want a good white Zinfandel to be. My bottling is all finished. I've got 2 cases of bottles plus a couple of extras. One of them is right here. And I figured, you know, it's young, yes. I don't really care. I'm making a mess back here. I just wanted to enjoy this. I really did. Very fruity. Typical of your white Zinfandel. Everything you kind of expect. Folks, that is a good, clear wine. Sweet, fruity, kind of light notes of black currant. It's good though, really good. You know, it's really cool when you can make wines yourself that are better than the $20 bottles you buy at the store. Okay, definitely worth your time. So give it a try. It's not a hard thing to do. I'm sure you're going to love it. It's been a long evening. It's kind of late for me right now, and I've already had a couple of glasses of wine. You might be able to tell. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please take a look in the description box. There's some links right there. One is for Wildgrain, and that is a really cool bread that gets sent to you in the mail. Believe it or not. You got to check it out, folks. It's a great sourdough bread. They also have pastas and pastries, and definitely worth your time. So check out that, take that link, check it out. You're going to like what you see there. Also, chef's temp thermometers. Everybody uses thermometers in the kitchen. We do it for a lot of things. Even when you're making fine wines, we're testing the temperature to make sure we get certain readings correct. All right, so remember, those thermometers important. That chef's temp thermometer is a really good one. Take a look again in the description box there. Please, thumbs up if you enjoyed this. It really helps me out. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Drop a comment in the comments box. And folks, please, by all means, enjoy your wine.